Welcome to Retirementals, a podcast that dives headfirst into the issues facing the financial sector at the intersection of investment, technology and financial advice. Hosted by Abraham Okusanya, you can expect raw honesty, critical analysis and energetic interviews. Here is your host, Abraham Okusanya.
Hello and welcome to Retirementals. I'm Abraham Okusanya and it's great to be here again today. I am really thrilled about my guest today. Brian Hill is should we be saying former financial planner and managing director of Jones Hill, former managing director of Jones Hill, a financial planning firm which he exited just about 2 years ago. Today he is the head of acquisitions at City and Capital. Brian, welcome to Retirementals.
Abraham, great to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Brian, there's a lot I want to talk to you about. You are one of the financial planners who've walked the journey, been there, done that. You've gone through a journey that many financial planners, business owners are looking to go. And now you're using your experience and your expertise to help firms who are looking to sell or buy or scale their companies. So we're going to dive into all of that. But before we do that, let's kind of just go back a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your journey into the profession.
Well, my journey into the profession was a slow and windy one. I know I look like I'm just 36. I'm a little bit older than that, 39-ish, plus a tip. And so I worked through originally from the army and then various different roles over a course of time, and then eventually fell into financial advice. And started off as a mortgage advisor just prior to 2008. In fact, 2007, I think it was, I was a mortgage advisor. And then our daughter, Madeline, came along in 2007, and we quickly realized that actually my wife and I couldn't have her as a financial advisor because the little one was in the corner, and trying to run a business with a little one in the corner was rather challenging. So I took my pre-IDR qualifications in super quick time, became an IFA, and then started to take a long, leisurely start at the career. I don't think I really got going for about 6 or 7 years. In fact, I have no idea what I was doing for 6 or 7 years. It just seemed to just disappear. I was definitely cruising, but learning the ropes as you go. You can get the exams, get the qualifications, get all the badges, but actually it's boots on the ground, sitting with clients, learning about their lives, their financial situation, and helping them through that actually counts. The exams are just skin in the game, aren't they? They just get you to a particular point.
Yeah.
After that, it's a wee bit more. So that's how I started in Jones Hill at that time, and then became MD, and then took it on from there, really.
Right. So you took the business to about 45 million when in terms of AUM, and tell us the circumstances that led to the to the exit. You're still, as you said, a very young man. Why sell?
Well, it was probably that I realized around about 5 years before we actually sold that actually I needed to get the business in a position where it was ready to sell. And so I started getting things in line, started recruiting staff. So there's a phrase that I use all the time, which is only do what only you can do in your business. Everything else needs someone else to do it, outsource it, insource it, but don't do it. Otherwise, you're just a glorified administrator, you're a glorified power planner, you're a glorified secretary, or whatever you are. Only do what only you can do. And so what that meant then was that I was then in a position where I decided early 2018, well, back end of 2017-18, that actually an opportunity had come up. And so I emigrated with my young family to Italy. And something must have happened on the grapevine, because I kid you not, the day I got on that plane, my feet were on the floor on that plane. I started getting calls from firms to say, "Here you're leaving." It's like the door hasn't even shut. The door hasn't even shut. What are you doing? And I got spammed by brokers like there was no tomorrow. It was just ridiculous, really. And then started talking to a few people, started genning up my knowledge on the process. What I would say that if I knew then what I know now, things might have gone a little bit differently. And my knowledge now is vastly superior to what it was at that point in time. But I didn't know any better, and so we had initial chats with local firms, but you tend to find the more local a firm is, the less money they've got to spend. And they start nitpicking and doing what we call the chocolate box approach, where they think, actually, in the chocolate box, I like this bit, and I don't like that bit. So I'm just going to pay you for that bit and not that bit. And actually, it's like, no, mate, it's the whole lot. It might be a trade, it might be an asset sale, it might be a share sale, but it is the whole lot. So I kissed a lot of frogs. Some of them were very unattractive. Some of them were not so bad, but some of them were deeply unattractive when you popped the bonnet on what they were offering. And so we then moved eventually to doing a deal with Prospective Financial Group, and that whole process took. And bear in mind, I was absolutely ready to sell. And I had my data room, I had all my stuff ready to go. So all we really needed to do was some due diligence. And that process took 6 months, even though I was ready to go. Wow. And the one thing here is people underestimate how long it takes to to get these things through due diligence and through the FCA. And so we did all that, and eventually we sold September 4th, 2020. Now, that seems like about a decade ago. Lockdown, coronavirus, quarantine. People say, "What day is it?" I don't know what year it is sometimes. So it was an experience like no other, and it's really given me a real insight into being able to speak with other owners of advice businesses to say, and they tell us this all the time, the credibility is off the scale because we're the only brokerage who have actually done it ourselves.
So this is fascinating. We're going to get into all that. The thing that I'm always interested to know is how are these deals structured? So you've gone through the experience, now you're helping others. Generally, how are these deals structured in terms of the valuation? Is it, typically the people talk about 3 times, revenue, or 4 or 5 times revenue, or multiple of EBITDA, something like that. And then this idea of upfront cash versus some sort of earn-out over a period of time. Give us the real practical experience of how that's structured.
So brilliant questions. Too many people get focused in on the multiple, and I got drawn into that as well. They think the multiple is a be all and end all. It's absolutely not. It's a third thing we need to think about. The first thing is culture. Is there a cultural fit between me and between me or my team or my company and the acquiring firm? If you've sold the fact you're an IFA to your clients for the last 20 years, they ain't going to be best pleased if you then say, we're going to go with True Potential, or we're going to go with SJP, or, because you're not keeping your promises, and the acquiring firm can't possibly keep your promises for you either. So the culture of the deal is important. How you look after your clients, your charging structure, what's the harmonization going to be? That culture is number one. And if you aren't 80% aligned, then you're going to lose out on the following bit, which is the structure of the deal. And no one deal we see is the same. So you'll have some deals whereby, or let's call it business transfers or business exits, where people will owner advisors will sell and exit. They'll just hang around for a little bit to help out with some stuff, but they'll exit. That's what I did. It's called a cliff edge exit. It's not a brilliant idea for most people, to be fair. You're better, some people will stay on. So essentially we've got the sell and exit. That's number one. Number two is sell, stay, exit. So you might stay on for 2 years in the role as a financial advisor, maybe in the role of an ambassador, whatever that means. But you're going to stick around for a couple of years. Now, that is a bit of a risky thing, because I tell you what, if you haven't sorted out the culture to start off with, you're then employed by a firm you don't want to be with. And that 2 years will feel like 20. And not only that,
Right.
you'll be under a restrictive covenant, which means then that you can't go and work for somebody else for a period of at least 3 or 4 years. So that's why culture is really, really important. That alignment is super important. So we have sell and exit, or sell, stay and exit, or sell, grow and exit. So these are for the younger guys or girls who have their own firm, or who have an appetite, they want to stay on, but they need, if you like, investment from another firm. They want to take some capital off the table, but they want investment from another firm to take it to the next level. And sometimes we call these hub firms. So they'll come in and they'll sit in, a PE firm, private equity firm will buy them 80%. They'll buy it, then they'll go. This firm will then buy satellite firms, or spoke firms, actually we call them. So you have the hub and spoke method. So they bought 80%. Then you come to sell your remaining 20%. And if everything's gone according to plan, hopefully your 20% is worth more than the 80% that you parted with initially. And that's not available for everyone by any stretch. If you've got like a two-man firm, chance of them becoming a hub is pretty slim, to be honest. It needs to be more going on. We've got a number of firms who their valuation is between 10 and 20 million. Those are going to be hub firms, absolutely, because they're going to stick around. They're going to buy other firms up who are local to them. So it's the three things: either sell and exit, sell, stay and exit, or sell, grow and exit. To be honest, most acquirers actually don't want you around for too long.
Right.
It's kind of, there's the door. If you could just make your way over in that direction, that would be great.
So that's brilliant, and I like the way you broke it down very simply into those three categories. But you creatively avoided my question, which is, what's going rate and how is it structured in terms of cash?
Oh, you can't ask me that. You can't ask me that question. Okay, let me say this. It's how long is a piece of string? All right. So
give me a ballpark. What do you see in the market out there?
Okay, so there's three ways of valuing a business usually in financial services. Number one is a multiple of normalized or adjusted EBITDA or profit. Number two is a multiple of recurring revenue. Or number three is a percentage of your assets under management.
Right.
Very few people do that, the assets under management. Usually it's people who are just going to operate, are going to get shot of everything, shoehorn your clients into one size fits all and deal with it remotely. So they pay big money because it's highly profitable. But once most IFAs look at it, they kind of say, many IFAs look at it, they say, no thanks. So we're then left with either a multiple of EBITDA, normalized EBITDA, or a multiple of recurring revenue. Smaller firms like mine are done on the basis of a multiple of recurring revenue. So I had around about 45 million of revenue. If it's a solid, revenue, that'd be nice. 45 million of assets under management, which was very nice. And they gave me a multiple of recurring revenue. My model was a little bit different because it was a fixed fee model, but which creates its own issues, to be honest. And that would be anything between 2.5 up to around 4.5. So if we look at different, how does that vary? So if we break it down into 4 different levels of advice firm, A, B, C, and D. A is best in class or most attractive, and they're going to achieve over 4. B is above average. C is below average. D is, what the hell are you doing? Right? or distressed. All right. So, for instance, the firm we're helping at the minute, they've approached us because acquire it's a distressed business from a point of view of the health of the advisor. They've unfortunately been diagnosed with terminal illness. They don't have, 5 years to exit gradually. Acquirers were aware of this, and they offered them 1.5 times recurring revenue. Wow. We've got them up to 3.5 times recurring revenue, with acquirers, but some acquirers were saying, yeah, you're a level D in not so many words, so you have to sell. So A, B, C, and D. What you'll notice is that there is no average. You're either above average or you're below average. And what I would encourage people to do is to look at it objectively, to look at it from the point of view of somebody else you're transferring your business to is just not going to look at it the same way you did. We all like to think our business is different. Our business is best. We have the best investment portfolio. We have the best staff. We have the best relationship with your clients. Well, that might well be the case, but acquirers often won't think that. All right. So we need to get off our little ego stool and look at it as objectively as we can. So we have to sometimes tell people the God's honest truth on things. One of the things which can really, it's a real stumbling block, is self-employed advisors. All right. So if you have a business with young self-employed advisors, in their 30s and 40s, bringing in most of your revenue, most acquirers will not pay you for it at all, because these advisors will just walk. Unless you can convert them to an employed model, and the next 5 to 10 years it will go virtually all employed, I'm sure. But unless you can convert your self-employed advisors to employed contracts, their revenue means nothing. Now that's a big, unless you're the the owner advisor, obviously that's kind of self-employed. But apart from then, if you've got staff, the value is it's D. Even though you might have the best of everything, if they're self-employed, it has a real negative impact on the value of the business. So we've got the A, B, C's, and D's. There'll be things like we're doing a webinar with 360, because one of the things we found is that if advisors haven't got all their compliance ducks in a row, that they haven't done an annual audit of their CIP or prod, if we can't evidence annual suitability going right across the board, if we can't see how they've selected the investments, and if it isn't written, if it isn't written down, it didn't happen, right? And if we can't evidence that, we are then transferring more risk to a potential acquirer, which means they'll pay you less. So it's absolutely key to have our processes and systems very well documented and objectively and independently reviewed. And acquirers love it, and they'll pay extra for it. If you don't have it, they'll pay you less.
Now, a word from our sponsor. Nikki Heaton-Jones is the Managing Director and the Chief Investment Officer at Betafolio, the high-tech, low-cost, discretionary model portfolio manager. Typical model portfolio service costs about 36 basis points. That's in addition to the funds, the platform, the advice fees. Tell us a bit about Betafolio's view and approach on fees.
Well, I don't think anyone that knows us already, Abraham, would be surprised to hear me say that in a nutshell, MPS fees are too high. If you include the fund charges and the platform fee that you already talked about, we get close to 1%, I think, on average for a lot of retail clients. And that's before they start paying for the financial plan, which is the part of the service that will ultimately add the most value for them in their advisor relationship and experience. My view on fees and Betafolio's view on fees is that they have a real impact on client outcomes that needs attention. And that's why we're building a scalable solution with technology that will allow us to keep costs low. And I think we also should consider the impact of these fees on advisors' businesses too. Advisors need to make a profit from their work. They need to have a viable business, and their cost bases have been rising because of regulation, and the more cost they have to pass through to their clients for overcomplicated services in turn puts pressure on the advisor's own fees and ultimately makes it not possible for them to run a good business. So fees are really crucial, and I'm really happy that we're in a position to be having a positive influence on the trends in the market.
Good stuff. Thank you, Nikki. This is brilliant, Brian. Thank you. This is just, all the things in my head is going in all the different
Yeah,
direction
yeah,
because you're delivering such a massive value right now, my friend.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I want to unpack this. So you talked about those three things of, yeah, sorry, you talked about those, say, four different levels, right? And a number of things that would affect, that will put you in one of those layers. So culture, I assume, will be one of them that you talked about. You talked
yeah,
about this idea of how the employment contract or the employment status of the
yeah.
advisor, and compliance, having a tight investment proposition and all that stuff. What else? What else are they looking for as potential, that could have an impact on that,
Sure. So
on where you
one of the
see
most
it on the level?
so one of the most important things is you as the owner. What are your plans? What do you want to do? I have a 4-year restrictive covenant on mine. Usually it's 3 years, but they looked at it because I'm so young that they wanted to protect themselves because they thought actually, you know what? If Brian came back into the market, the chance of all his clients swimming back to him is high, high. And actually, they went
Right,
one step
right.
further and they said, I'm not permitted to advise anywhere in the UK remotely at all. So that was a real risk for them if I came back into the market, and I would never have done that. But they wanted the contract to say that. And what they want to know is, what are you going to do? So sometimes with some acquirers, they'll say to you, Abraham, actually, you're doing a great job here. Why don't you stay on and then come and work for us and do some other stuff? Maybe help other parts of the business. So we see some really interesting
Mm,
deals where advisors, they don't want to advise clients anymore. They've had enough of retail, if you like. They've had enough of getting the
mm,
getting the FCA and FSCS random checks in the post. They've had enough of the PI insurance just going up and up and up and up. They've had enough of the
mm,
FCA sending ridiculous COVID surveys. FCA, if you're listening, stop sending them, please. No one wants to do them. But they want to know what you want to, what you're going to do, and that may impact the value as well. But the most important thing there, Abraham, is they want a motivated seller, and the reason for that is there is a fixed cost to acquiring a firm, and if partway through the seller thinks, you know what, it's not for me, I'll look at it again in 3 years' time, they've wasted everybody's time, including their own. So we want motivated sellers, we want educated sellers, and we want sellers who know what they want out of a deal. And they have realistic expectations. Sometimes we talk to people and they say, yeah, I know the market says a 3.5 to 4 times recurring. I want 6. I say, okay, yeah, great. What's specialist?
mm,
What's special about your business? And they go, don't know really. So, okay, well, that's never going to happen. So we need to look at different things. Other things that will impact the value might be if you are delivering a holistic financial planning service, you're really looking after your clients, they are getting the maximum service out of you, but the average value is 100 grand and you're charging 0.5%. That's you might be doing a great job, you might be compliant up to the hilt, but there's just no meat in that for an acquirer at all. So there's a whole bunch of things that they will look at as the whole picture. It's not just down to your assets under management. It's not just down to your recurring revenue. It's the whole picture of the business. So I spend a lot of my time getting underneath the bonnet of financial advice firms, understanding what they look like, and representing them to acquirers. So I might just say we're a what you call a sell side brokerage. So we represent the vendor, whereas I think all other brokers are buy side. They represent the acquirers. So that's a key thing to bear in mind. And I suppose really the seller needs to understand what they're actually selling, or actually a better word is transferring. What is it you're transferring to somebody else that you're going to get paid for? And the better you understand that, the easier the whole process is, if that makes sense.
So you alluded to this challenge earlier, of financial planner looking at these potential buyers and saying, for whatever reason, they're not aligned with us, especially around the investment proposition. So you see this, which is very rampant in the sector right now, of these acquirers coming in, buying a financial planning firm, where the firm might be used to low cost investment proposition, low cost platforms, and getting good quality financial plan, which is where the value is. And then these clients are going to go into a proposition where evidently the objective of the buyer is to move them into more expensive investment proposition and to diminish the value of advice, or maybe not even deliver planning. How do you address this challenge, and especially how did you communicate this to your client, the idea that now you're selling, that they're going to be clients of some other company? How did you address that?
So just dealing with that last part first, as part of what the exit process, I insisted on a split exchange and completion. And between exchange and completion, then we organized the client information pack, if you like. And so what we did was I sent out a letter with perspective at the same time, which was sent out on the Friday to arrive on people's doorsteps or doormats on the Saturday morning. On the Friday evening, I also sent an email to our entire client list saying exactly the same thing. I also sent a personal video from me explaining things. So we had 3 goes at it, which meant that out of the 150, 160 households we had, 1 person didn't get it. That was it. And so we had put in there, in that letter, like a frequently asked questions. Answers, you're going to ask this is the answer. So it meant that although it was a shock to a lot of people, we already preempted a lot of those questions, if it makes sense. Now, as far as the first question, which is about alignment of investment, then this is absolutely key. And this is something people, when they look at the money on offer, they kind of seem to forget this bit. We have, when we're assessing someone's business for sale and someone's motivation, I want to know 3 things. I want to know, number 1, what are your red lines? Number 2, I want to know what your restrictions are. And number 3, I want to know what your requirements are, right? So red lines are things which you will not agree to for any amount of money. And it's interesting how people move from between, they think it's a red line, but actually when they're offered enough money, they'll move it to a requirement. So I'm saying to people, right, you're going to get £1 million for your business. Or if you're going to be, if you're going to go down the IFA route, if you go down the restricted, it'll be 2 million. What do you want to do? And people would go, I'm really independent, but that's actually quite a lot of money. And it's so that's no longer a red line. That's a requirement, a restriction, sorry, to say, okay, I don't want to go down the route of a vertically integrated firm, but I'm quite happy with a kind of whole of market. Right. And then the requirements are, again, you've got to be realistic about this. Someone who says, I want 100% of the money up front. It's like, you're not being realistic. This never happens. Ever happens now. It just doesn't. Why would they pay you all the money up front and take that risk that you're just going to go off to, to Thailand for the next 20 years and they can't get the money back? Let's be realistic. So it's a transfer of risk, including the money they're going to pay you, because they're banking on those clients staying with them, not just for the period of the deferred consideration, but for the next 5 to 10 years. They want 10 years worth of income. So for instance, if just referring back to one of your earlier questions, if your client bank is average age is 70 and you can't evidence intergenerational planning, household planning, the value of your client bank is diluted, it's diminished, because those clients are going to be out of there. They just are, whereas if you can say, well, my average client age is 60, mine was 60.4, and those clients who are over the age of 80, we have intergenerational planning. The acquirer will should look at that and go, great, you are above average or even a grade A as far as your client bank is concerned, if that makes sense. So part of our role really with this, Abraham, is just making sure the vendors go through things very, very thoroughly, and they understand the red lines, the restrictions, and their requirements, and they also understand how challenging this can be. So, for instance, we had a request for, as part of the due diligence, request for information from, as part of the due diligence from an acquirer. It had 500 points on it. 500 points, of which 250 were compliant. Now, they're not going to, some didn't need to answer and all the rest of it, but I looked at it and was like, oh my gosh, jeepers, where do we start with this? So we're involved very early on. We get the data room organized real early on, based on what people need, because we've been through that mill, we've been through that process, and I can tell you, if you're not ready, it makes you look amateur. Really makes you look amateur.
So, I mean, I speak to a lot of financial planners, many in their 40s, maybe even 50s, and they're thinking to themselves, they say, I'm not planning to sell in the next couple of years. I'm still young. Why should I be thinking and worrying about this stuff?
Yeah.
When would you say is the ideal time for a planner to start, lining their ducks in a row, as it were?
There's two dates. One was the day they started their business. And if they haven't done that, pretty much guarantee they haven't. I didn't. If they haven't done that, the second best date is today. And the reason for that is it's a long timeline to get done. So, for instance, if you have if we do a transaction today, we transfer a business to an acquirer today, you'll have the deferred consideration period, which is usually at least 2 years, maybe 3 years. So you get 50% or 60% day one, 25% year one, 25% at the end of year two. It takes between 6 and 12 months to actually go through the whole process from start through to completion. So we're actually talking about at least a 3-year period. So if someone says, I'm looking at exiting in 3 years' time, well, you started already, right? And if you haven't, you need to kind of push it out. You need to push it out. And we're, if you cut me down the middle, I'm a financial planner, and we always tell clients, you're better putting the money in early than you are putting more money in late. All right, and it's exactly the same with this. Get started, get your ducks in a row, and find out, if this business is going to deliver your number or not. Because if it's not, you're going to need to change. So we need to understand the process, get educated, and look at what the ideal time is. Now, the really important thing with this, though, Abraham, is that I'm a firm believer in you need to be ready for that forced or non-forced sell.
Right. Because health, whatever.
Exactly right. So because of health, or the latest FCA thematic review suddenly comes out, and how many DB businesses have been screwed who are very, very good, but now just can't do any business, can't get any PI for their business, or an opportunity. If I had a quid for everyone who said, well, I'd sell if the right offer came along. Well, mate, if you ain't ready, that offer will never come along. That's like saying, I'm gonna, one day I could win the lottery. Well, if you don't buy the lottery ticket, you ain't gonna win. So the key thing with this is to start getting the business ready now. Then that gives you the opportunity. So I was used to saying financial planning clients, forget retirement. It's about financial independence. So financial independence, when you reach that date, and this is what we use Finalytic for a huge amount, was when you get to that particular date, you then have the choice to retire or be financially independent or go and play golf or whatever. Doesn't mean you will, it just means you have the choice. So what that means is if people are ready, and if they want some of our checklists, I'll be happy to wing them across to the people listening. And if they do that, then they will be able to have a business which is ready and take advantage. And what I would say is that there's a lot of money awash in the acquisition space at the minute. There's a lot of money, but I think in the next 5 years, if the average age of a financial advisor is 55 or 53 or something like that at the minute, and they're all saying, I'm going to sell in the next 5 years, we're going to move from a seller's market to a buyer's market, and we're going to see these multiples drop and acquirers be highly, highly selective as to who they're taking on board. So whereas, you know better than most, Abraham, we shouldn't time the market, but we do need to be aware of it.
No, fascinating stuff. So obviously you've had a great exit, right? You got a lot of money in the bank. So talk to me about, how you decided what's next and what's the attractiveness of, City and Capital. Talk about City and Capital, why you joined,
Sure.
and, some of the thought process going on in your mind
Sure.
before you made that decision.
Yeah, I'm probably going to upset a few people with this. Hopefully I won't get sued. But the thing is with this is that I went through the process and was kicking around wondering what I might do next. And you know what? I'd become so disillusioned with the broker market, so disillusioned with it. They didn't understand financial advice firms in detail or in depth at all. It's not their fault. They've never run one. They've never sat where you've sat. They've never sat where I've sat. They don't understand the intricate nuances and mechanics of a financial advice business. They just don't. It's not their fault. But they didn't know that I'd exchanged. They didn't even know I'd completed. They had no input at all. It was, and a lot of brokers that I see actually just go around and just take your details and fling it out to their entire acquisition list. And I was determined that I wanted to do things differently because I've got a lot of friends in financial planning, and I respect my colleagues a huge amount. People underestimate how good that financial planners do, that and I know how good the results that they get from people, not least of all the peace of mind that they bring. But they're going to be exiting, so I wanted people to exit as good as, if not better than I had. So I looked around and avoided some brokers, talked to a few, met with a couple, and then I came across City and Capital and Vicky Hicks. And I knew as soon as I lighted upon the website, this is the one for me. And the reason for that is that Vicky is a chartered financial planner, and she also built, and exited her own financial planning business. And suddenly we are now the only practitioner-led sell-side broker in the whole of the UK. We're the only firm that's actually done it and have got the scars to prove it. And this means then that other financial advisors who and I know have said to me, Brian, we don't talk to brokers. We don't want to go through brokers, but we do want to use you because you've been there, seen it, done it, got the t-shirt, and we need your expertise with this. And so we joined City and Capital. I joined City and Capital now. If people are looking at this later on, we're actually changing the name of City and Capital because it's a no name, means nothing basically. So we're changing the name. I think we might change it to. We've been working on this with Phil Bray from the Yardstick Marketing, whom you'll know as well. And we've decided to, at this moment in time, change the name of the business to the Exit Partnership, because that's what it's about. It's a partnership between us and the vendors to help them exit well, if that makes sense.
Brilliant stuff. So I want to start to wrap this up. So I'm assuming that this is the gig for you for the next couple of years. Of course, this is a podcast where we talk about retirement. You said financial freedom, but if we were to look at the Hill family financial freedom plan, what does that look like? What does the next couple of years look like for you?
Well, I'm really enjoying this at the minute. I hope Vicky back in Leeds is enjoying it too. It gives me the freedom to work as I want to work. It gives me the ability to stay within the financial planning profession, which I love, and it gives me the ability to be a master of my own destiny. You know as well as I do that when you've been self-employed for so long, you're completely unemployable. And so what that means for me is then, I found something that I really, really like, and I don't plan on changing anything soon. What I do plan on doing is skiing a little bit more. There's been no skiing this year. There's been no skiing last year. I'm sick to the back teeth of it. I think if Boris can go and have his cheese and wine work parties, I'm sure I can have a ski work party as well, for goodness sake. That's all that about.
Brilliant stuff. Brian Hill, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. And where can financial planners find you? Social media, website. I'm assuming the website name's going to change.
Yeah. So LinkedIn is probably the best thing. So Brian Hill, MSc. Just hook up with me there. I'll be at all the conferences. I'm speaking at a few of them as well. So there, or just Google Brian Hill IFA, and you'll see a few pages on me. You'll probably know. It sounds terrible. You probably know someone who knows me if you don't know me already. That's not famous. Absolutely. That's infamous.
Brian, thank you very much for your
pleasure.
time.
Thank you, Abraham. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
I'll be remiss if I don't thank my incredible team who worked very hard to put this program together. Thank you very much, guys. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Timeline App, the retirement planning software, and Batefolio, the high-tech, low-cost flat fee model portfolio manager. And to you, our listeners, thank you for your time. I hope you've had as much fun listening to the program as we have making it. You can find more about the show at retirementals.co.uk, and you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is Abraham on Money. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.